sorry, but if a man would rather get shot than agree to marry me, maybe he's not the one for you, babe. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a Bridgerton fan. Hi, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're not, welcome back, okay? This one's gonna be a fun one. I just recently binge watched Bridgerton since the new Bridgerton season 3 part 2 is coming out this June. I've been rewatching Bridgerton and I binged the whole first season and realized I need to talk to someone about it because no one in my family watches the show and I need to talk about it. So this video is going to be an entire unhinged recap of the first season of Bridgerton. So if you haven't seen it, obviously there's going to be spoilers in this one. I'm taking you through beginning to end season 1, giving you my thoughts, giving you literally the narrative. So if you don't want spoilers, click off. But if you love spoilers or you don't want to go watch the show, stay tuned. Also, I'm hiding my mic behind the fan. I just feel like I need to say that. So if you're like, why is the fan here moving around? It's part of the theme. Also, I did have to cut finger holes in my gloves so that I can actually scroll on my notes during this video because with the gloves on, my computer doesn't recognize me as a human. So let's jump right into it. Bridgerton is set in 1813, okay? The show starts off with everybody rushing to get ready for something, present themselves to the queen. So essentially this entire show is the debutantes, you know, they're entering society. The women that have now become of age to enter society and find a husband. It's about that. It's like the courting season of the ton or the society. In case you weren't already aware of the show, there are like, it's explicit, which is so funny because it's like an old-timey show about romance, but there's explicit scenes, literally right off the bat. Like they're getting ready and they're like, where's Anthony, which is the oldest Bridgerton son, and the cameras cut to a scene of him literally against a tree. So that sets the tone for the show within like the first 3 minutes. So once all the girls are ready, they have to present themselves to the queen, and the queen pretty much decides who's going to be like the diamond of the season or like that season's catch. So for all the men who are going to marry, they're like, okay, who is the woman that is like the best to marry? The queen like decides that at this. So the girls put on these like giant plume feathers on their head. They have to walk up to the queen, curtsy, greet, you know, and then the queen determines who the best one essentially is for the season. The girls are going one by one, they're walking up, they're curtsying, and everybody's kind of, all the girls are fumbling, tripping, you know, bored. The queen's bored until Daphne walks up. Daphne Bridgerton. She walks, she's got her head held high, she's calm, collected, and she curtsies, and the queen is like, yep, you're the diamond of the season. So at this point, we know Daphne is the diamond. Okay, my hand is cramping, so I need to put the fan down. As this is all going on, we kind of have this old lady narrating the show as everything's happening, and you're like, okay. We find out this old lady, the old lady voice that we're hearing is Lady Whistledown, which is this like anonymous gossip column writer for society who basically is the first gossip columner who lists people by name. So she essentially in 1813's terms ats everybody she's talking about. So you know when you're being talked about. What's iconic about her is literally the opening line of like introducing her first column. She literally says, "It is said that of all bitches alive or dead, a scribbling woman is the most canine." Okay, so camp. So Lady Whistledown is camp. That's what we're getting. Now that the queen has established Daphne as the diamond of... There is a hole in my glove. Oh, not very ladylike of me. My 2 fingers sticking out of the glove. So, since the queen has deemed Daphne the diamond of the season, Lady Whistledown writes in her column, you know, she is diamond of the first water. Same thing, okay? So, everybody's like, yay, Bridgertons are happy. And there's another family that's really prominent in this season of courting, and that's the Featheringtons. And she's entering her 3 daughters into the into the season, along with one of their cousins. So there's 2 older sisters, Philippa and Prudence, and the younger sister, Penelope. Penelope Featherington, the youngest of the Featheringtons, she's self-conscious. It's also her first season being out, like coming out or whatever, and her older 2 sisters have already done this before, and they still haven't been able to find a match because they're like weird and quirky, I guess. And another thing to note is the Feathering mom, the mom of the Featherington family, is ruthless, okay? Cutthroat. She makes comments about Penelope's weight. She like bosses all the girls around. She's very ruthless, like you will come to find out. But so it's not just the 3 girls in the Featherington family. They are taking in a cousin, a distant cousin, who basically is seeking board, or you don't really know why she's there yet, but she's there, and she's also going to be entering into society as well. So now there are 4 women in the Featherington household being entered into society. So the cousin joining them, just to show you a little bit of why this Lady Featherington is freaking ruthless, the cousin joining them is not from like a Lady Lord like stance. She's not titled. And they're literally talking mad shit about her. She's like, she's probably ugly. It's going to be so hard to find her a husband. Da, da, da. And then she walks in. Marina Thompson is her name. She walks in and they're like, oh, she's actually gorgeous. She's more gorgeous than my daughters. Okay, so moving on. A new character is introduced. A handsome, gorgeous man riding in on a horse, which we soon find out is the Duke of Hastings, which is going to be our romance partner, okay, for Daphne for this season. Duke of Hastings riding into town. We are introduced to Lady Danbury, which is like his aunt, you know. I guess in like certain terms is like his aunt, but they're really close, and I love Lady Danbury. You will find out why. I just love her. She's my favorite character. Her and Violet Bridgerton, which is the mom of the Bridgerton family. So he is newly Duke. His father just died. So he just rode into town after dealing with his father's death. He's bantering with Lady Danbury, and we kind of get the idea that he doesn't really have a good relationship with his father. So he's not all that upset that he died, essentially. But he kind of seems to be against his title as the Duke right now. So we don't really know why, but he's like, okay, he's a little sassy about it. Meanwhile, the eldest son of the Bridgerton family, Anthony, is off hooking up with some, like, opera singer. So, like, okay. It's ball time. Lady Danbury throws a ball. It's time for the girls to get out there. It's time for them to dance. It's time for them to make connections, find a husband. The moms are gossiping. The music is playing. Also, all of the music played in this show is modern music translated in like classical terms. So it's literally like Thank You Next by Ariana Grande, but with a violin. So like I love that part. That's one of my favorite parts about the show is the music. At this ball, Daphne's finally getting the chance to make connections, you know, talk to people, and Antony is basically cock blocking her the whole time. He's standing in the way. Every time someone comes up, he's like, oh, that person, oh, he owes debts, or oh god, he's a poet, oh god, he's this, like, he's not good enough. Basically ruining every single chance that Daphne has at finding a match, like right off the bat. So it's really frustrating. Meanwhile, Colin Bridgerton, which is like the 3rd oldest son, sets his eyes upon Miss Marina Thompson, the cousin that's from out of town, and he's like, oh, so you can kind of get the vibe that he's like, oh, she's cute, I like her. Guess who enters the ball? The Duke, okay, which at this point in the season, I love him. He's instantly surrounded by mothers pushing their daughters in front of him, trying to, you know, like assure their match, because literally no one's better than marrying the Duke. Like, a lord is one thing, a duke is another in this society. Meanwhile, Daphne manages to slip away from Antony to try and like just get some space, because he's literally up her ass, and she's approached by Lord Burbrook, which he is nasty, okay? Nasty. She's approached by him, and he's like, you've always mused me, Miss Bridgerton, ever since I was a schoolboy, and she goes, all but 5. So basically he's liked her since she was 5 years old. Gross, okay, gross. So yeah, disgusting. She is fleeing the scene. Basically, literally what you would do if a creep was up next to you. She's fleeing the scene. She's running through, bumping into people. Then she crashes into the Duke, and she's like looking back behind her, trying to like make sure Burbrook's not following her. And she's like, hi sir, like tell me your name. And the Duke's like, I'm to believe that you don't know who I am. all sassy, like sassy. And then she immediately turns and she's like, excuse me? Like, she's like, what? And then she turns behind her, Burbook's coming, so she like starts laughing and pretending they're already in a conversation, and the Duke's like, what are you doing? Like, you're fooling me, like, you know who I am, da-da-da-da. And then once Burbook seems to be distracted, she turns to him and she's actually like, what is your problem? Like, I actually don't know who you are. Like, I'm Daphne. Like, what's your name? And then, to break the tension, also, they're instantly enemies, basically. To break the tension, Antony shows up, and he's like, hey, my boy Simon. So, we find out that Antony, her older brothers, that's his bestie. They're besties. So, her brother's best friend trope as well as enemies to lovers. So, Antony's like, you know what? It's time to leave. Let's just leave. If you leave now and you don't dance with anybody, you'll leave them wanting more. You'll have more callers in the morning. So she's like, okay, I agree. So they leave. And the next morning, sure as shit, bunch of callers show up to her house. But who else has callers? Well, Marina Thompson. So the Featherington house is also popping with callers, but not for the Featherington girls, just for Marina Thompson. Meanwhile, at the Daphne house, Antony scares away all her callers. So it's not, even though she has a lot of them, Antony's scaring them all away. So it's not really helping. And because of this, Lady Whistledown is like, you know what? Maybe the queen was wrong about Daphne being the diamond of the season, because she hasn't secured a match. And it looks like all these callers are going in, but they're all leaving. So the queen's pissed because she doesn't like to be told she's wrong. Even though Daphne isn't reading Lady Whistledown, her sister Eloise is keeping her up to date. Eloise is basically like the 1813 version of a feminist. She's like anti dressing up for all these people, even though she still has to do it. She's anti-marriage. She's I want to learn. I want to read. I don't want to learn needlepoint. Essentially, that's her vibe. So Colin Bridgerton is one of the callers that shows up for Marina Thompson, and Penelope's got those like crushing eyes. So we kind of find out that Penelope likes Colin. Okay, it's a really cute crush, but Colin kind of only really sees her as a friend, so it's kind of sad. But something is definitely brewing there. So Daphne has a hard conversation with her brother Antony, basically about saying like, you know what, listen, my worth is based off whether or not I get a match. I know that you don't understand what that is, but you have to learn how to understand, because you're getting in the way of literally my only life duty. So figure your shit out, essentially. Talk your shit, queen. Okay? Love that for her. It's important to note that the Duke at this point is kind of like anti-marriage. He doesn't want to get with anybody, and you don't really know why yet, but it's just like known that he's anti-marriage. Oh god, I gotta take, y'all, I'm hot. I don't know how people of this time wore gloves all the time, because I'm sweating and I'm in an air-conditioned room. So now we're at another event, okay? We're enjoying the opera. Lady Danbury invites Daphne and her mom Violet to come sit with her, and the moms start chatting, and they're basically like, you know what? The Duke needs a wife. Daphne needs a match. Let's scheme and let's do a little matchmaking between my nephew and your daughter. Love that. They invite the Duke over for dinner at Daphne's house, and all the children are sitting at the table together. It's like a rowdy family moment, and you can kind of tell that the Duke's not really used to it, because he's like an only child who was basically neglected, you find out. But they get sat next to each other, and the Duke is basically like, I bet you're happy sitting next to me, and Daphne gags him. She's basically like, you should refrain thinking of me at all. Period. So the girls are fighting, you know. They're like whispering and bickering. They're whisper bickering at the table, and it's awesome. So Antony immediately sees what the mothers are cooking up, and okay, this is literally killing me. Let me move it a little. So Antony immediately sees what the mothers are cooking up, like the little matchmaking scheme they're doing, and he confronts the mother and is basically like, you know, you're overstepping. It's my duty as the man of the house to find her a match, and it's not your place. Also, the Duke is not worthy, and he's not the marrying type. Violet gags him, puts him in his place as the mother. One thing about a Bridgerton woman is she will put a man in his place. She's like, duty? Pray tell what you know of duty. You're running off with your little opera singer. So if you want to talk about duty, you need to marry someone as well. So shut up, basically. Immediately after this argument, Antony hooks up with a side piece, and then after hooking up with her is like, I think it's time that we're done doing this. We can't do this anymore. Rude, okay? So it's time for another event. Keep up. There's events happening every night. So at this event, Colin's chatting with Penelope. It's really cute. And then Miss Cowper, or Cressida Cowper, basically the mean girl of this season of Girls, shows up, pours her drink on Penelope right in front of Colin, and then it's like, oh my god, Penelope, I didn't see you there. And Colin is like, he sees the whole thing happen, and he's like, what a cunt, and invites fucking Penelope to go dance with him. So there's a cute little moment between them. Meanwhile, at home, Miss Thompson doesn't go to the event because she is suffering from an illness. The type of illness that lasts 9 months. Yes. It's not a secret within the Feathering household because the housemaids clean your sheets, and she had been there for over a month and she hadn't bled in her sheets yet. So they're basically like, oh, something's going on. And they bring it to Lady Featherington's attention that Marina Thompson has not had her blood yet. Back at the event, Anthony shows up and ruins the vibes. Like always, okay? Ruins the vibes. He tells Daphne, you know what? Lord Burbrook is a fine match. I've made an agreement with him. You will marry Lord Burbrook. Mind you, remembering Lord Burbrook is the one who liked her when she was 5, so creep, gross. He is so annoying. His mother scolds him about duty, and then he goes and does something like this. It's bull. Daphne, rightfully so, is pissed, runs off into the garden to get some air, much needed air, and what happens next is amazing. Okay, Lord Burbrook follows her, essentially, because he's a weirdo. And he's, like, coming on to her, and he's basically like, I'm your last hope, no one else wants you. And he grabs her, and the Duke is also entering the garden, and you're thinking, oh my god, the Duke's gonna save the day. But the Duke is not needed, because Daphne right hooks his ass, knocks Lord Burbrook cold on the floor, and the Duke's standing there like, you just knocked this dude clean out. Like, he's passed out on the floor. And the Duke's like, I'm impressed. It's really cute. They have some cute little banter. And the Duke's like, you're not actually going to marry this guy, right? And she's like, if I can't secure another offer, then yeah, it's my only option. And the Duke's like, you know what? I have an idea. Enter the fake dating trope. They decide they're going to fake court each other so that the mothers and daughters leave the Duke alone and Daphne looks more desirable and gets more matches other than Burbrook. So that's how episode 1 ends. On to episode 2, shock and delight. Flashback time. We are flashing back to the Duke's childhood, okay? So the Duchess of Hastings, the Duke's mom, is giving birth to essentially what we assume is the Duke, and you kind of get a glimpse of the relationship between his mom and dad, which his dad isn't ass, okay? He's not in the room with her when she has the baby. He does not care at all about her. All he cares about is getting an heir. So his mother puts herself through hell trying to produce a boy, and she finally produces a boy, and she passes away giving birth to him. So he never got to meet his mom. It's really sad, and the dad literally does not care that his wife just died. All he cares about is the fact that he finally has a son, an heir to pass the line to. So back to real time. Lady Whistledown paper was delivered, and it worked. Okay, Daphne and Simon, the Duke, are fooling the city into thinking that they're courting. So not only did they fool Lady Whistledown, but they also fooled Lady Danbury and Violet Bridgerton into thinking that their little matchmaking scheme worked, which is awesome. So back at Lady Featherington's house, Mommy Featherington tells her 3 daughters that Miss Thompson can't come out, can't do anything because she is with child and it's contagious. So don't go in her room, basically, which I love that. But also, this is important to note, all of the girls are left in like complete darkness when it comes to sex or intimacy or childbirth, anything. They're not told a damn thing, so they don't know any better. They literally think it's catching after she tells them that. So since the little display of Daphne dancing with the Duke, she has a bunch of callers now, which you know what that means. If there's a bunch of callers at the house, who's going to show up to ruin the vibe? Anthony. He shows up, ruins the vibe. He's pissed off. The mom is pissed because she finds out that he promised her to Lord Burbrook, and the mom's like, are you insane? Like, this is not what I meant when I said do your duty. She's mad, and the mom's like, you know what, no, she's gonna be with the Duke, so figure out whatever you told Burbrook because she's gonna be with the Duke. Now we get this fun, steamy, sexy scene of the Duke punching in a ring with his friend, helping his friend practice his boxing skills. He's sweaty, it's good, the vibes are good, which can only mean one thing. Anthony shows up and ruins the vibes again, okay? If there's one thing about Anthony, he's gonna ruin the vibe. So he shows up, Antony jumps in the ring with the Duke. They're arguing. He's like, you're my friend, but family comes first. You're not good enough for my sister. Punch, punch, punch. We get another flashback. We're back in the Duke's childhood home. The Duke's 4 years old, and he has a stutter, okay? He's talking to his dad. He's stuttering. His father immediately writes him off, and I quote, says, the Hastings name cannot land in the quivering hands of a half-wit. And he says, essentially, you're dead to me. And he is not joking when he says you're dead to me. He neglects him. The people of the house staff take care of him. He doesn't see him. He doesn't write about him to his family. He's dead to him. So, back in real time, Penelope decides to risk catching pregnancy by going to visit Marina Thompson in her room. And she learns that Sir George Crane, which is a boy that Marina was in love with, is the one who got her pregnant, but he is currently fighting the war in Spain. So, but he's writing her love letters the whole time, so it's really cute. She tells Penelope that her condition was brought on by love. Isn't that cute? At this time, the Queen sent a personal invitation to Violet Bridgerton, the mom of the Bridgerton household, to come have tea with her. So that's exciting, okay? Now we're doing another flashback to the Duke's home. We find out at this point the Duke is 5, and Lady Danbury shows up at the house, and she's like, oh, so you're actually not dead. You're literally breathing right in front of me. Why have I not heard of you? And he stutters, and she immediately tells him a story about how she used to be scared too. She was scared of her own shadow, and she learned to be the scariest person in the room, and that went away. So she helps him overcome his stutter. It's very cute. She takes him in as her own and basically raises him, which kind of explains why they're so close. We're at another ball. Again, keep up. Okay, the music is fire. Everybody's dancing together. Everybody's chatting together. The vibes are good, which can only mean one thing. Lord Burbage comes up to start a conversation, and the Duke literally cannot help himself. He can't keep his mouth shut. And he basically talks about how he attempted something with Daphne. He talks about it in front of Antony. He attempted something with Daphne, and Daphne knocked him clean out, and he can't believe Antony is letting them get married or whatever. Antony immediately is like, oh my god, like, fuck, the agreement's over, basically. You're not getting married to my sister. Everybody's like, yay, awesome. Antony's pissed that Daphne didn't tell her. Daphne's pissed that the Duke said anything because she's like, people are going to overhear and they're going to think that I'm not pure anymore. So you're ruining my life. So after the ball, Lord Burbage follows the Duke out into the hall. Bad idea. Burbage starts begging Duke to just let him have her, okay? Ew. Why have you not proposed to her yet? Unless you've already had her. Which would mean she's soiled. If I had known she was used, I wouldn't have wanted her. Not something you want to say to someone who boxes for fun and is in love with Daphne, obviously. So, of course, he starts punching him into the ground. You do not deserve to breathe the same air as her. Punch, 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 punch. Love him for that. Flashback. Back at the Duke's house, okay, Lady Danbury brings Simon back home, presents him to his father, and is like, look what we've been working on. And he brings his father up to speed on everything he's been doing for the past few years, and he's not stuttering. So she helped him overcome his stutter, and he literally looks him in the face. The dad looks Simon in the face and goes, you are my worst failure. Kill him. He's already dead, but bring him back to life and kill him again. Lady Danbury rips him a new one, as the women in the show do. Love her. This part made me cry, though, because Simon is about to be dragged out of the room by Lady Danbury, and he goes, I wrote to you many times to let you know I'm not dead. Have you received my letters? Crying. Like, I'm literally tearing up just thinking about it. And his father looks him in the eyes and he says, and I quote, it is a deep enough wound to live with the knowledge that you shall one day inherit Hastings, but to witness your struggle is too great an insult. You are as useless as your mother proved to be, so I shall pursue the same course as I did with her, to forget that you ever sullied these halls. Speak of trauma, okay? We're back to real time. The Duke is sitting in his father's study and staring at the pile of unopened letters that he had sent when he was a boy. But no time to be sad because it's picnic time. Everybody's outside having a picnic. Families are on the grass, under their canopies, having a grand old time, okay? Vibes are good. When the vibes are good, someone has to ruin it, and this time it's Lord Burbage, okay? He comes marching up, face all beat to hell, from the beating he took the other night. And he shows up and he's, you know what? He threatens the Bridgerton family, saying, I'm going to tell everybody that Daphne is soiled unless you agree to let her marry me. Here's this, like, marriage license, whatever. Evil man, but things are not looking good for Daphne at this point. Remember that tea that Violet Bridgerton got invited to at the Queen's house? It's time for that, okay? It's tea time. It's tea time, babe. The Queen encourages her to use gossip to help the situation between her and Berbrook, because essentially if Daphne marries Lord Berbrook, it's going to look bad on the Queen because she will have not picked a diamond. You know what I mean? So after the tea, Lady Bridgerton invites over Berbrook and his mom, finds out some dirty little secret that he has a bastard child somewhere that he's not supporting, and then they start gossiping. Word gets out. Berbrook flees town, okay? He flees. He has fled town. He's not a problem. Problem solved. Another ball, more dancing. There's a lot of balls and dancing in this show if you haven't put that together. Daphne reminds the Duke that this arrangement's very important to her and her success in her family's future. So he needs to basically stop effing things up, and she should probably start dancing with other people besides him. So he goes, okay, and he also asks her to start calling her Simon instead of the Duke, so cute. Another flashback, but more current. The Duke is sitting at his father's deathbed. He's dying, and he tells him, the dad's like, oh my god, you finally showed up to take your rightful place. And the Duke stares him in the eyes and he goes, I'm vowing to you, I will never marry. I will never sire an heir. The Hastings line will die with me. Period. End of episode 2. On to episode 3. Art of the Swoon. Okay. That was bad. The Art of the Swoon. The chemistry between the Duke and Daphne is insane. Like, insane, okay? They're still pretending to courting, but they're basically actually courting, okay? They're going on dates. They're walking. They're having ice cream together. It's cute. At this point, Daphne's already declined 3 other proposals during this time, and the people are starting to talk about her being too picky, and yeah, so it's not good. She needs to pick someone. Meanwhile, at the Featherington house, Penelope and Marina sent a letter out to Sir George about the pregnancy, and they're waiting to hear back. They're waiting for a letter from the baby daddy, okay? Mama Featherington decides that Marina needs to marry someone and marry someone fast before they find out that she's pregnant, and essentially trapping someone into marriage, okay? So time for another ball because we need to get married. I don't think you guys understand the chemistry between these two characters. It's insane, okay? The way Daphne and Simon look at each other, no season will compare to the amount of chemistry these two have. At this ball, Daphne's dancing with her suitors, but they're all really boring. And then there's a new eligible bachelor in town, okay? And he's a prince. Prince outranks Duke. So that's who she needs to get with. So the Queen has invited the prince specifically to match her with Daphne. So the prince comes up to her at the ball, compliments her, she laughs and ends up snorting at him because before he walked up, she was giggling and joking with the Duke. So she's like not interested in pursuing anything with the prince, and it's cute though. Daphne can't sleep that night for obvious reasons. Lots of decisions, things need to be decided. So she decides she's gonna go get a glass of milk. She runs into Antony in the hall and kind of starts asking him about the Duke because they're besties. So she's like, I need to know more about Simon. Like, why is he the way he is? Why doesn't he want to marry? And he essentially tells her he grew up very differently than us. He grew up an only child. He was very lonely. Like, he's not for a family. So she's like, all right, time for another event. And Miss Cowper, the mean girl that poured the drink at the beginning, is swooping in on the prince because Daphne's not snatching him up. So Miss Cowper will. One thing about Cressida Cowper is she will swoop in a lot. Mama Featherington is pushing Marina Thompson around, trying to find her an ugly old man who will kind of look past the fact that she's pregnant. Okay, we get some really cute tension between the Duke and Daphne in one of the art rooms while they're looking at a painting and talking about art. Their like hands touch and then they remember where they are and they kind of have to pretend, you know. Since Daphne's not going for the prince, Lady Whistledown is writing that the Queen has lost her touch about picking the diamond, and she's wrong. And of course that pisses her off because the Queen doesn't want to be wrong. She goes to the prince and she's like, charm Daphne into liking you, okay? Fuck the Duke, okay? Like, stop worrying about the Duke. Charm her. I'm over this. So Mama Featherington is insane, okay? Insane. Marina Thompson is bucking up against her whole idea of trapping a man into marriage. She's like, no, Sir George is going to come back. He loves me. So Mama Featherington takes her to where the poor people live and basically says, look around, because this is what your life is going to look like if you don't marry someone. Okay. Marina confesses to Lady Featherington that Sir George is going to come back for her. And that's who did it. And Lady Featherington's like, ha, you're funny. You just told this boy that you're pregnant and you're thinking he's going to come for you? No, like he's going to leave your ass. Moving on. We're promenading again, okay? Fancy word for taking a walk in really expensive clothes. Daphne and the Duke are talking about what brings people together and marriage things, and they end up having a conversation about like what happens between married people. And he's basically like, it's a continuation of what happens at night. And she's like, what happens at night? Like, I sleep. And he's like, you just sleep? You've never, you know. And she's like, no. And then that essentially, he tells her how to, and she does that night. Moving on, gross. Lady Danbury basically gets the Duke by his collar and is like, you need to propose because the prince is gonna fucking swoop in and take your girl. And the Duke's like, yeah, whatever, I don't want to get married. Still, at this point, keep in mind, we still don't know who Lady Whistledown is, so that's still like a big secret. She's anonymous. The next day, because of Lady Danbury's lecture with the Duke about you need to propose, or you're honestly like, you're getting in the way of real matches, so you need to basically shit or get off the pot, essentially, is what she's trying to say. So, because of this, he goes up to Daphne the next day. He literally cannot look her in the eye. It's so upsetting. And he's like, we're done. Whatever this is, it's over. We're not friends. I'm not good enough for you. Go be with the prince. And she's like, I thought we were friends. And he's like, we were never friends. You were just a distraction for me. So he essentially new moons her. Minus the part where he leaves her in the woods to get lost because they're in the middle of town. But he new moons her. He's like, you're not good enough for me. Go away. Just so she'll leave him alone. And she'll go find her own match. So back at the Featherington house, a letter has arrived from Spain. Yay! It's Sir George. So come to find out, he wants nothing to do with Marina Thompson. She reads the letter and she's like, yeah, he wants nothing to do with her. Only Sir George did not write that letter. Guess who wrote the letter? Guess who forged the letter? Yep, Lady Featherington. Mama Featherington, okay? Forged the letter. She basically wanted it to stop her from daydreaming and focus on getting married. And that's exactly what it does. So now that the Duke is out of the picture, it's time for Daphne to secure a match with the prince. She pulls on full charm at tonight's ball. She's like, I'm going to show him what he's missing, and I'm going to secure a match with the prince. Mama Bridgerton gives Antony a list of 14 girls and is like, okay, find a suitable girl from this list to marry. Stop hooking up with the singer. Basically, she's like, here's 14 suitable women. Find a match. AKA, stop hooking up with the opera singer. So she puts her foot down on that one. End of episode 3. Time for episode 4. Keep up. An affair of honor. Okay? Daphne's cracking under the pressure, y'all. Can you imagine the amount of pressure she's under? I would crack under a fourth of that pressure. So she's on the verge of snapping. Imagine, she's like performing 24/7 for literally everybody in the society. She's dealing with the breakup. She's dealing with trying to secure a match with the prince and be perfect. Like, it's crumbling, okay? The Duke is dealing with the breakup by punching a bag and packing his bags to leave London. So his boxer friend convinces him to stay, at least until his big match is over. So for now, the Duke is here to stay. Back at the Featherington house, Mr. Finch shows up as a caller. A cute, like, sneezy, weird boy. Perfectly matches Philippa's energy, one of the older Featherington daughters. And so now she's finally having a match, which is really cute. Penelope and Eloise are walking through town, and Eloise decides, you know what? I'm going to find out who Lady Whistledown is. So, at this point, Eloise is on the hunt for who Lady Whistledown is. I haven't really talked about the second oldest son in this yet, but his name's Benedict. He is essentially an artist, okay? This whole time, he's just making art, having sex with artists, going to artist parties. He's not courting. He's not doing anything, like, responsible in the family-wise. So it's not really, like, I'm not going to talk that much about him. But yeah, he's an artist is essentially all you really need to know. Daphne attends the boxing match with the prince. And there's more sexual tension between them there. And after the match, the prince asks Antony for his permission to propose to Daphne. So that didn't take very long. But again, the queen's like breathing down his neck to propose. So Antony says, you know what, let me ask my sister. So he goes back to Daphne and he asks for your hand. Let me know what you decide and I'll let him know. So he's learning how to do his job. So now that the match is over, the Duke is packing his boxes. He is ready to leave. Lady Danbury gives him a beautiful lecture on love, but the Duke is like, yeah, I don't care. I'm still leaving. That night, there's another ball and event. Surprise! Who guessed it? Okay. Daphne is barely holding it together. I mean, like, she is visibly, like, fighting a panic attack through this episode. And while she's trying not to die, Benedict is at an artsy party where everyone is getting high and drawing and getting naked and having sex with each other, so he's having fun. Back in the ballroom, Colin Bridgerton goes up to Penelope and is like, I want to dance with Miss Thompson. Soul crushing to Penelope. Soul crushing. Daphne's dancing with the prince. She knows he's going to propose. He starts the conversation and she's immediately like, I need air. So she dashes outside, which, me, okay. Anytime I'm in an uncomfortable situation, I'm like, I need air. Goodbye. So she dashes outside. Guess who's outside? The Duke. So he hasn't left London yet, okay? He's still here. He came to say goodbye before he leaves. They're arguing about her marrying the prince. She's like, yeah, well, you fucked this up, so whatever. Basically, she's mad. She runs off into the garden. They're arguing. Then they kiss. So we get tension release. They're making out. He's groping the F out of her. Antony shows up, sees it happen, punches the Duke, and is like, you will marry her. Period. End of discussion. Because you just basically soiled her or took her innocence, okay? And now you will do the manly thing, like the proper thing, the honorable thing, and marry her. Now that, since no one else will marry her because of it. He's like, no, I'm not going to marry her. I don't marry. Sorry, but I'm not marrying her. And he's like, okay, well then I demand a duel. I demand a satisfaction if you're not going to marry her. And he's like, okay. And Daphne's like, you'd rather die than marry me? You'd rather die than marry me. And the Duke's pretty much like, yep, see you at dawn. I'm sorry, but if a man would rather get shot than agree to marry me, maybe he's not the one for you, babe. That's happening tomorrow morning. Back at the Featherington house, Penelope is listening to Marina Thompson talk about Colin, blah, 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 blah. And Penelope's just sitting there, like, biting her tongue because she obviously likes Colin. And she's just like, that's really good for you, Marina. You know, like, dying inside. Earlier at the ball, Philippa, okay, Featherington daughter, was crying because Mr. Finch stopped talking to her immediately. Like, he just stopped talking to her randomly. So, because of this, it was right after a conversation with her father. So, Miss Featherington is like, Lady Featherington is like, I'm on it. She starts snooping around the house, finds out he has spent all of their daughter's dowry. So Mr. Finch stopped talking to her because he said, you know what, there's no money in this marriage. Sorry, no money. They find out he's gambled away all their money. They're in deep financial shit, okay? They have no money. And they have debt. But it doesn't matter because it's time for the duel, okay? Time for the duel. As the boys are setting up, Daphne's pacing around her room, and she remembers Miss Cowper, Cressida Cowper, the mean girl, made a comment to her about the gardens. When she came back from the gardens, she said, oh, were the gardens nice? As in, she saw her and Simon making out. So this duel is stupid because even if they kill each other, Cressida Cowper can spread the rumor. So it doesn't matter. So Daphne immediately is like, okay, we have to get married. I have to go make sure he doesn't die. She gets on a horse. She rides up. It's a really cool scene. She's riding up. They fire the shot. She falls off the horse. You think she got shot, but she's fine. She stands up. She's basically like, you guys are idiots. Cressida Cowper saw us. She'll spill the tea. She's gonna talk. We have to get married. You're getting married to me. He refuses. He's like, no. The Duke's like, no. Daphne's like, I'm not giving you a choice. Period. You're marrying me. Episode 5. The Duke and I, okay? So basically the urgency of this wedding, they need to tie the knot before the secret comes out. Like, it's a race to secure her reputation. So they need a special license, which is denied by the queen because she's pissed that Daphne's not getting with the prince. Valid to be pissed about that. Now they have to go in front of the queen and convince her that they should be allowed to get married super fast. Back at the Featherington house, Mama Bridgerton gets her husband by the balls, and since she found out about the money, he gambled away. And it's awesome. I kind of love her. She's like, she's like, my girls need new dresses. And he's like, they can go without dresses. And she's like, then you could go without your tobacco. And she like grabs his pipe. Love her. Love her. So Colin Bridgerton is still pursuing Marina Thompson. Penelope's rightfully pissed about it because she loves him. And, you know, essentially she's pissed because Marina's baby trapping her crush. And he's a good kid. She's like, he's a good boy. He wants to travel. Like, you're ruining his life, essentially. So Lady Featherington basically tells her, stop pursuing Colin Bridgerton because he's not someone who's going to overlook the fact that you're pregnant. He has a very good reputation. You need someone who no one knows. He has money and he's not going to care that you're already pregnant, okay? Marina is like, no. Basically, she says he won't question it if I seduce him before the marriage. Like, if I convince him to have sex with me and then trap him into a marriage, and then he's going to think the baby's his. So I'll just do that. And Lady Featherington's like, good luck. Another little thing to side note is the whole time we don't really see the king. Like, we mostly just see the queen. And it's up until this episode that we get a little scene of the queen and the king at dinner together. And it kind of comes out that he has dementia or some form of dementia or Alzheimer's, where he's just not all there. He's not okay, you know, he's deteriorating mentally. It's a really sad scene, and it kind of gives you a little more empathy towards the cold-hearted queen that we've been seeing. It's also important to note there's a spin-off show called Queen Charlotte, where it just goes into the queen's history and her, like, courting season and stuff like that. So that's a really good show, too. I could make a video on that one. But moving on. So at this point, the Duke has told Daphne that he can't have children, and that's why he doesn't want to get with her. And coming from a big family, Daphne's, like, trying to come to terms with the fact that she's about to marry someone who can't have kids. Her idea of what marriage and family has been this whole time is about to basically be crushed. So she's upset. Meanwhile, Duke is getting drunk and staying drunk. That's how he is dealing with this marriage. He sobers up enough to go with Daphne to speak to the queen about the special license, and he pulls all the stops out, manages to convince the queen that they're in love, because they are, but manages to convince her, and she gives their blessing. They have a super small, rushed wedding. Done. Time for their wedding after party. Okay, this is where all this stuff happens. So, Penelope has had enough sitting around watching Marina trap Colin, and she speaks up. She's like, you know what, Marina? Anyone but Colin. Anyone but Colin. Pick someone else. And Marina's like, I'm marrying Colin. LOL. Like, cry about it. She does not care. So at this point, Penelope and Eloise aren't talking to each other because Penelope blew up on her after being pissed at Marina because she was trying to talk to her about Lady Whistledown's suspect list, and Penelope was like, I literally don't care, Eloise, I don't care. I have bigger shit going on. My crush is about to get baby trapped, okay? Like, leave me alone. So the girls are fighting. Marina manages to sneak Colin off into a room and tries to seduce him, but he's an honorable boy, and he essentially refuses to take her innocence and ruin her reputation. Sweet, but not good for the plan, okay? He does say, let's get married. So they enter engagement. But that's so far away for Marina, like, time-wise, that it's not a good option. Like, they need to do something now. So the party ends. It's time for the wedding night / honeymoon for Daphne and the Duke. They end up stopping at an inn on the way, which she's kind of pissed because she's like, you could have told me we were spending our honeymoon night at an inn. Okay, you could have said that, and he didn't. So he gets separate rooms for them, and she's like, oh, so we're having our wedding night in separate rooms. Cool. Exactly how I wanted to spend my wedding night. She's like, okay, so he hates me, basically. He's pacing around his room, she's pacing around her room, and he comes to her room right as she opens the door. We get this gorgeous confession of, I burn for you, you know, and it's really sweet. They're in love. She feels guilty for trapping him in the marriage. He feels guilty for trapping her in the marriage. So they both feel guilty. They talk about it. They end up consummating the marriage. Yay! Yay. Okay, time for episode 6. Swish. At this point, the queen has found out that Eloise is investigating who Lady Whistledown is, and she basically joins forces with her. She's like, you tell me what you know about Lady Whistledown, I'll give you whatever you need to find out, okay? Colin Bridgerton announces in front of everyone that he's engaged to Marina Thompson. And when he announces it, his mom is like, pure shock on her face. Antony's like, did you know? And she's like, people are looking, keep a good face, you know? So Penelope finds out at this announcement as well, and she obviously looks like she's about to cry, which valid. Antony refuses to give his blessing for the marriage, so there's that. There's a part where Daphne's sister's like, I wonder what Daphne's doing right now, because she moved in with the Duke, away from where they were. The answer is fucking. On the floor, inside, on the floor, outside, on the stairs, on the chairs, against the paintings, against the walls. Anywhere they can, they are doing it, okay? They're doing it. That's what she's doing. Back at the Featherington house, they invite the Bridgertons over to kind of like smooth waters with Marina Thompson and Colin's engagement, okay? So they even got Miss Thompson in a new dress that hides her baby bump. What could possibly go wrong when you're trying to trap a high-standing family into baby trap? During the dinner, Penelope manages to get Colin alone in the hallway and tells him that Marina is in love with Sir George, the baby daddy. Oh, well, he doesn't know she's pregnant. So she tries to get them to not be married by telling Colin that Marina's in love with someone else who's fighting in Spain. Colin basically looks at her and goes, but she chose me. She chose me. She don't want him. She chose me. So he doesn't care. He's like, but she's marrying me, so it doesn't really matter. It's basically his mindset. So instead, Colin and Marina decide to run away to Scotland, get away from everybody, get away from the haters, run away to Scotland, I think it was, and get a marriage license there. You know, why wait? We're in love. People hate us. Back at the Duke's place, Daphne is snooping around, and the house and talking to the lady of the house that was taking care of the house before she got there and was there when the Duke was being raised. She has no idea how his father treated him, so she's basically trying to gather information. Back at the Featherington house, Penelope does some digging and finds out that her mom forged the letter that they read together from Sir George about how Sir George wants nothing to do with the baby. She finds out, meaning Marina never received a letter from Sir George. So she tells Marina, now Marina knows, but she doesn't care. She's like, he still hasn't sent me a letter, so obviously he doesn't want anything to do with this. Even if he didn't send me a letter saying it, that's obvious. So I'm moving on and I'm going to marry Colin. So Penelope's done like everything she can to try and get this engagement to end without telling him that she's pregnant. So yeah, Marina has realized that at this conversation of like, look, the letter was fake, da-da-da-da, Marina realizes that Penelope loves Colin and is like, that's why you're so upset. You're in love with him. She basically says, your crush is stupid. He sees you as a sister, nothing more. He sees me as a wife and a woman. Facts, don't care about your feelings. I'm marrying him. Get over it. Ouch. Literally ouch. Daphne's trying to figure out why Simon can't have children. She asks the lady maid, like the person that has been with her and helps her get dressed and stuff, that's really close to her. She asks her questions about how to make a baby and like what would make someone not be able to have a baby, and basically because she has no idea, okay? And she starts to notice after that conversation, which you don't get like details of the conversation, but essentially she finds out how to make a baby, okay? What makes the baby specifically. And she starts to realize when her and the Duke are doing it, he's essentially doing pull out game strong method, okay? So she's like, oh, he keeps just like pulling out essentially to keep from having a baby. So she starts to get a theory. She's like, okay, why is he pulling out if he can't have children? Let's put it to the test. So to test her theory, she traps him during the intimate moment. She basically doesn't let him pull out. And based off his reaction from that, she determines, yep, you can have children. You're just denying me children, essentially. Yikes. Penelope runs to Eloise and is sobbing. Mind you, they've been in a fight this whole time, so they haven't been talking. But since Marina Thompson was basically like, facts don't care about your feelings, I'm marrying him anyway, get over it, she's sobbing, running to Eloise for comfort. The episode ends with a new issue of Lady Whistledown, which announces that Miss Marina Thompson is pregnant, has been pregnant since she arrived in town, and is essentially baby trapping Colin Bridgerton. So the cat is out the bag, okay? Town knows, Bridgertons know. Everybody knows Marina Thompson's pregnant. Episode 7. talk. Episode 7. Oceans apart, okay? Daphne and Simon are rightfully fighting at this point because he lied to her. He lied to her and she's pissed. Valid. Daphne and him visit the Bridgerton house to smooth things over with this scandal between Colin and Marina. And she was gonna go alone, but Simon was like, I don't want to leave your side until we find out whether or not you're with child, essentially, because she wrapped her legs around him and didn't let him get out, okay? So Colin, the love-struck dummy, wants to see Marina, which is obviously a dumb idea because Daphne's like, y'all, there's a scandal. You guys shouldn't be talking. But Daphne agrees to chaperone a little meeting between the two of them, so she does. It's important to note, the Duke basically tells her, if you're with child, I'll do my duty and provide for you and be there for it. But if you're not with child, we go our separate ways. We are only married in name. We don't talk. We don't see each other. We live separate lives. So I hate him. Moving on. It's time for the chaperone meeting where Colin is pissed for being lied to, okay? And Marina Thompson's basically like, I'm a victim of my circumstance. If you were me, you would have done the same thing. Shut up. I had to do what I had to do to support my future family. Before he walks out, he says this really sad and sweet thing. He says, if you would have told me about your situation, I would have married you without a second thought. That's how in love I was. Oh, honorable. Okay, queen. King. Okay, it's time for the queen's luncheon. Little sandwiches cut into triangles, okay? My jam. Mama Bridgerton is picking up on the angry vibes between Simon and Daphne, okay? She's like, something is amiss. Yikes. The queen is getting impatient with Eloise's investigation on who Lady Whistledown is, telling her to basically hurry up. Lady Danbury invites Daphne to a party only for married women of the ton, so it's kind of exciting. She's like, girls only. She walks up to Simon and Daphne and she's like, I want to invite you to something, and Simon's like, we'll be there. And she looks at Simon and she goes, for women only. Queen. Featheringtons enter the luncheon. All eyes are on them for obvious reasons. Not good vibes. Bad eyes, okay? Eloise promises Penelope that no matter what, she will figure out who Lady Whistledown is because, God forbid, someone drag her best friend's name through the mud and ruin her family's reputation by exposing a secret like that. So she's like, Penelope, I swear I will find her and I will destroy her, okay? Because she's a good friend. Eloise is a good friend. The queen kicks Featheringtons out of the luncheon. Yikes, okay? Daphne blows up on her mom because she's mad at her for not telling her what sex was, because she would have figured it out sooner. Like, she would have figured out that he lied to her way sooner. She's basically misplacing her anger to her mother, which, who doesn't do that? I do it. You probably do it too. So after the luncheon, Daphne is thinking more about the chaperone conversation she was in between her brother Colin and Marina, and was like, you know what? Marina has a point. So she goes to the Featherington house, and Daphne does this, goes to Marina, and she's like, you know what? I apologize for how I treated you. You're right. You were securing your future. And why are we letting Sir George off the hook? So she's like, I'm going to get in contact with Sir George. I'm going to make him come back here and be responsible for what he did to you by giving you this child. Basically, Marina's like, yeah, good luck with that, but whatever. So I really liked that moment. It was really sweet. It was like a girl's girl moment. So remember how I said that the Featheringtons are broke and in debt? So there's a really big boxing match coming up between Simon's friend and another opponent. And Lord Featherington, the man of the house who gambled all the money away, meets with Simon's friend, the boxing match person, and goes, listen, I'm going to bet against you, or I'm going to wager against you. If you throw the match, I'll give you half of the money I earn from you throwing the match, okay? He doesn't agree to it, but he's like thinking back and forth, like, should I really give up my honor for money? But mind you, he's broke, like, he's got mouths to feed, so it would be really good for him. And Lord Featherington is essentially gambling to get himself out of gambling debt. When has that ever worked? Okay, so that's happening. It's time for Lady Danbury's Married Women Only event, which is so awesome. Daphne walks in, and basically all of the married women are acting like doing what men do in public, but like in a secret room. So they're all sitting, they're like slouching, they're drinking alcohol, they're smoking, they're gambling, they're talking shit. Like, it is just good vibes all around, and the doors are like, it's very secrety. It's so cool. So cool. So I love it. At this point, Simon's picking fights with Anthony. He ends up getting a nasty cut on his eye, and back at the house later that night, Daphne sees him bleeding and offers to help, and she's like cleaning the wound even though they hate each other right now. This ends up turning into Daphne trying to convince him to have a baby with her, and Simon essentially starts confessing that he vowed to his father that he would end the line, okay? So Daphne's like, that's a stupid reason to not have a kid with me because you told your dying father you were gonna end the bloodline. You love me. Your love for me should trump that, is basically what she's saying. So Eloise, it's time for an event at the Queen's now. Eloise has a theory that Lady Whistledown is a tradesperson. So the theory is it's the modiste, the woman who's been making all the ladies' dresses throughout the entire season and kind of listening to all the gossip. That's her theory. Okay, she goes to tell the Queen. The Queen's like, I don't need your help anymore. I know who it is. Period. She's like, oh, okay. Okay. While this event's taking place, Marina Thompson is making a special tea to get rid of her baby problem, okay? While watching the concert performance at the Queen event, Daphne gets her period, which essentially means that her and the Duke will no longer be together. I mean, they'll be married in just name, okay? They're gonna be separate, which is really sad. I really love how they did this scene because they basically went back and forth between the intense orchestra that's playing at the concert and Daphne's like feeling weird, and then it's cutting to Marina Thompson making her baby be gone tea, and then Daphne gets her period right as Marina's drinking the tea. Like it's a really cool way that they did it, okay? Since the Featheringtons aren't at the concert, Penelope goes into Marina's room to talk to her and finds her passed out on the floor. At the concert, Mama Bridgerton walks into a room, finds Daphne sobbing after finding out she started her period, and there's just a moment where they're hugging each other, and it's very like, no words are said, but Violet Bridgerton she understands what's going on, so it's really sweet. On to the last episode. After the Rain. Buckle up, because a lot happens in this episode, including finding out who Lady Whistledown is. So, before you watch the rest of this video, comment down below who you think Lady Whistledown is, and then edit your reaction after, okay? So, Marina is fine. She just passed out, y'all. She's fine. She said she thinks the baby's gone because the movement in her belly has stopped. So she's like, the baby's gone. Except a carriage arrives at the Featherington house after her being like, yeah, the baby's gone. Carriage pulls up. Man steps out. Sir George's brother, Sir Philip, okay, shows up to deliver the news that Sir George died in the battlefield. He's dead. That's why she didn't receive a letter back, which is really sad. His brother found a half-written letter going to Marina, written by his brother, basically saying like, I love you, I'm coming home, let's run away together, we'll raise this baby together, but he never got to send it, which is heartbreaking. It's also relevant to note that Daphne's planning a party throughout this episode, and it's planned that after the party, Daphne and Simon will go their separate ways, okay? So, today is the day of the boxing match that I mentioned earlier. Lord Featherington places a huge wager on that he planned against Simon's friend, okay? And he gives the deed to his house as his wager because he's broke, mind you. So he's like, here's the deed to my house. At this point, the match is about to start. Simon's bestie's like, do I throw the match? Do I not? Meanwhile, back at the Featherington house, Sir Philip, George's brother, proposes to Marina and is like, listen, my brother soiled your reputation. You're pregnant. You're unwed. Let me make this right by marrying you and taking care of that child. And Marina's like, thanks, but I don't love you. And in her head, she's like, the baby is gone, so I don't have to do this anymore. So she's like, I don't love you. Sorry. While preparing for the party, Daphne's snooping around. She finds the unread letters that Simon sent to his dad when he was a little boy. She reads them all, and while she's reading, Lady Danbury shows up and basically fills her in on everything that she didn't know about Simon and his relationship with his father. So now she's in the know. Simon's bestie decides he's going to throw the match. He throws the match, and afterwards Simon goes up to him and is like, why would you do that? What of your honor? And he's like, there's honor in making sure your children are fed. Period. The next morning, Daphne plans on visiting her family before the party, everything, and invites Simon to come with her to see her family, and he's sitting on the couch with her younger siblings, and she's giving him those eyes of like, you would be a great father. Also, tensions are lower. The hostility's kind of gone since Daphne's found out about his relationship with his father and read those letters, so the vibes are getting better. Back at the Featherington house, Marina Thompson feels the baby move, consults a doctor. The doctor's like, you thought a tea was gonna fix your issue? You're funny. So she's pregnant. She's still very much pregnant. Bummer for her. It's time for Daphne's ball, okay? Time for dancing. Relationships are being mended. Colin's talking to Penelope again. Penelope's about to confess her feelings, and Colin cuts her off with I'm gonna be traveling. I'm gonna leave. And Penelope's like, oh, okay. So Penelope doesn't confess her feelings. He asks her to dance, but because of this, she's about to cry. So she's like, I'm leaving. So she flees. Eloise finds the queen at the ball and finds out that they plan on unmasking Lady Whistledown. During the event, they're gonna go seize her. Like, while the event's happening, she has a team of people going to seize Lady Whistledown, who's on her way to a print shop, because that's when she does her stuff when everybody's busy. So they're gonna seize her and unmask her that night. Eloise has decided it's her job to make sure that the woman who is paving the way for these feminists, her feminist vibes, okay? The woman that's paving the way and about to be silenced, she needs to stop it. So she leaves the event and goes to where Lady Whistledown's going to be seized and basically is like, go, run, go, go, go. They're going to come get you. And the carriage takes off. But it's important to note, she never sees who's in the carriage. She just knows Lady Whistledown was in the carriage and she got her to go away before the Queen's people showed up. So Lady Whistledown is safe. Eloise still doesn't know who she is. Okay. Now, back at Daphne's ball, Daphne and Simon agreed to one dance before they part ways, and they start dancing. It's arguably the best instrumental in this entire season so far, and they're dancing, and then it starts pouring rain, and we get like a very intense rain pour. Everyone rushes off the dance floor. Daphne stands there, and she's arms open, looking up at the rain, breathing heavy, smiling, laughing, just letting the rain hit her, and Simon's standing there in the rain like, I'm sorry this happened, and she's like, please, even the Duke can't control the weather. Like, she's just feeling all this intense energy in this episode, and she looks to him and she's like, just because something's not perfect doesn't mean it's less worthy of love. Your father was a terrible man. You'll be nothing like him. I love you. Let's make this work. Anyway, her confession essentially makes him start thinking. Back at the Featherington house, after the event, we find out that Lord Featherington is dead, okay? It's inferred that the men he gambled with found out about his little scheme and killed him. They also took all the money he earned. So now Lord Featherington is dead, and the Featherington house is now once broke again, okay? Miss Marina Thompson decides, now that I am with child, I'm going back and I am going to accept Sir Philip's offer to wed me, okay? The Bridgerton family says goodbye to Colin, who leaves for his travels, which we get to learn about in another season. And then we get a shot of Lady Whistledown in her carriage with the hood on, and she pulls back the hood, and it's revealed that Lady Whistledown is Penelope Featherington. Did you get it right? The episode ends with a glimpse into the future of Daphne giving birth to a child with Simon. And it's completely opposite of his mother's birth. Simon's there holding her hand through the whole thing, being very supportive, very happy, and they have a baby. The end. Okay, that is the entirety of Bridgerton season 1. It's my favorite season. I've watched all seasons so far. I'm waiting for part 2 of season 3 to come out, but I love the show. I personally think this is the best season. Let me know what y'all think. Subscribe if you want. The fact there are 3 holes in this glove right now. Anyway, subscribe if you want. Comment something about the season. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever. Should I do a video like this on season 2? Let me know. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.